It takes a village. That's what comes to mind when I think about Jayla, Nick, Madeline, Sean, and Katie, who are some of the students you see here on my screen. And these are some of the many lives that my team and I set out to change over the last 15 or 16 weeks. But why? Why them? What makes them so special? Well, when I look at them, I see me. I see my siblings, friends, cousins, friends of friends, and even my unborn children. And as I think about them and how young they are, and I'm taken back to that quote of "it takes a village," and how that, along with being involved in the community, is what my life has been like since I was a child. I recall being in middle school where our weekends were filled with being at the baseball park, where my dad and brother played Little League baseball, and my mother and sister and I, we were in the concession stand making food for whoever wanted it. And then on every other Thursday, and at least one Saturday out of the month, we'd be on a Girl Scout trip because my mom was a Girl Scout troop advisor. Then I remember going into high school and I was afforded the opportunity to be in the Upward Bound program. And for those of you that don't know, Upward Bound is a government-funded program where nonprofits apply for grants to introduce kids to new things. But ultimately, it's to prepare them to go to a four-year college or university. And I remember on the weekends, we'd go on college tours, visiting museums, spring break trips, and we even traveled across country from Atlanta to DC one time. And we even received stipends for participating. So we received the works. And all of those things that we did during the program were designed so that we know exactly what we wanted to do after graduating high school. But unfortunately, as many of you may know, somewhere along the way, the idea of who we were supposed to be quickly became a blur. But thankfully, Upward Bound guided me to finding my passion, which has always been to start my own youth nonprofit organization. And it's that goal that has inspired me and pushed me to learn more, do more, and be better so that I can one day provide for our youth and give them a better tomorrow. And this passion of mine is what fueled me to come up with this design challenge. Reimagine the pathway for K through 12 students' entry and success into college and/or vocational training. And I recall years ago, I believe it was my freshman year of college, so that was like 2011, I watched a documentary called Waiting for Superman, which tells a compelling but tear-jerking story of students who want better and their parents who want the exact same thing when it comes to their education. But when you live in poor neighborhoods, which also have poor school choices, their parents were left with no choice but to place their student's name in a lottery, hoping that their child's name would be randomly selected out of a bucket to go to a great school. And this is what we call the opportunity gap, which according to Teach for America, the opportunity gap refers to the circumstances in which people are born in, so such as their race, their ethnicity, zip code, and their socioeconomic status, and how all of those things play a part in their opportunities in life rather than their potential. And because of my upbringing in the community and documenting such as Waiting for Superman, I knew that there were three things that I wanted to focus on when it came to this design project, which are the opportunity divide, the lack of resources, and then just students being unprepared for life after graduation. And all of those things led my team and I to create this opportunity statement. We like to explore ways to help teens and young adults ages 18 through 21 to be more prepared for adulthood in a way that makes them feel independent. Because surprisingly, if you're properly prepared for adulthood, you'll be able to make informed decisions about your future. And now you guys, when we got to this point in the project, still pretty early on, a couple of weeks ago, I was excited because I was finally gonna be able to do something that I've been wanting to do since I was in high school. So this nonprofit idea has been in my mind since high school. But just like that, the tables turned on me. But we met some people, so I want to show you who we met. We met teens, young adults, and parents. And with these people, we just got to know them a little better. We wanted to find out what their needs were, how they view life, how they view education, and the world in which they live in, not we live in, but they live in. And so here's some of the things that we discussed. We did interviews, a card sort game, a guided tour, and then the resource flow. And so as you can see, our time with these people it was pretty long, but we got some great information. And there are two things that I want to share with you about this part in particular, which are the card sort games. And so we have these words that you see here on my screen: money, education, happiness, freedom, and job security. And we said, put these words in order of importance to you. There is no wrong answer. Whatever you choose, it's totally up to you. And then we did something similar to the first card sort game, another card sort game, where we said, say the first word or sentence that comes to mind when you see these words. And so we had these words that you see on my screen, kind of like clip art images. So the word success, adulthood, resources, school, independent, financial freedom, and invest in yourself. Again, we said there's no wrong answer. Whatever you tell us, that's what we're gonna annotate. And so you all, after it's all said and done from up to this point, we were shocked with some of the results. So let me show you a few key things that we discovered. Number one, education was seen as an extension of one's childhood. So you guys remember, you kind of like you preschool, elementary, middle, high, college. That's what they viewed education as, just colleges as a part of the path. Number two, education felt more like a social decision rather than a decision to make in hopes of bettering one's outcome of job choices. And so, for example, our 21-year-old college student, she went to Kennesaw State University her freshman year of college, and her major was political science. And as time progressed, as we all do in college, we meet people, we become best friends, we start hanging out. And so one day her friend said, you know, you make a great school teacher. You should be a school teacher. And just like that, she changed her major to be a school teacher. And so going back to that second point, education felt more like a social decision rather than a decision to make in hopes of bettering one outcome of job choices. And then finally, number three, all individuals describe happiness and freedom at the top of the list of priorities over job security and money. And so that one kind of shocked me the most. So y'all, before I go further, I want to tell you about the vibe, I guess you can say, that I got from these teens and young adults that we interviewed. They all just lived life, had this meh mindset. They were just, whatever happens today happens, whatever happens tomorrow, 5 years from now, they're just going with the flow. They weren't excited about the future. You know, for me personally, I'm excited. I know what I want out of life, so I'm going after it. They didn't have that same zest, that same happiness. They didn't know where they fit in. And so from that, we inferred a few things. We said, well, maybe happiness is a great source for teens and young adults in their decision-making. And then we said, number two, peer support plays a huge role in the path of one's choices. And then finally, number three, we said, maybe it's more about self-awareness than a lack of resources than we originally thought. And so now, you guys, at this point in my design project, I realized that I left someone out. Because as I said earlier, we talked to teens, we talked to young adults, and we talked to parents. But we missed the educators who have direct knowledge of this topic. So we met some people. We met educators, academic coaches, and curriculum content managers. And after we met with everyone, so everyone you see here on my screen, along with the parents, the teens, and the young adults, we wanted to do a little bit more research, and here is what we found. All right, so the classic seesaw. I know you guys remember this, probably not this color, probably a metal seesaw as we grew up. So I'm going to use the seesaw as an analogy to explain the research that we conducted. All right, so here we go. The school system. On the first side, we have the school system. And so when it comes to education in America and identity formation in the classroom, the school system is saying, hey, we're doing our part. So we know we're doing our part. We're committed to the 5 A's. What are the 5 A's? The 5 A's stems from Osler's research titled Bringing Human Rights Back Home, Learning from Superman and Addressing Political Issues at School. So the 5 A's: availability, accessibility, adaptability, acceptability, and affordability. But what are the 5 A's really saying? They're saying public school is free, affordability. Students' needs are being met, accessibility. There are schools in every single community, availability. And then there's equal access and equal testing standards, so acceptability and adaptability. And so that's what the 5 A's are saying from the school system perspective. All right, so who's next on the other side of the seesaw? We have our educators. And our educators have this perspective of what I created or called the 3 E's. And so what are the 3 E's exactly? Exposure, exploration and expression, and then expectations. And so what are the 3 E's really saying though? Number 1 is exposure. In my research, Erikson said that identity formation is a lifelong process that begins when a baby cracks their first smiles. So as parents, as aunts, as uncles, or whatever relationship we have with young children, it starts with us at home. What are we exposing to our children on the weekends, after school, during summer break? Because what you're exposed to at home transfers into the classroom. And then we have number 2, exploration and expression, where the educator is saying there's a strict curriculum and let's not even talk about trying to fit identity formation inside of that curriculum. It just can't happen. And then finally, number 3, expectations. Our teachers are stretched thin, and there's so many expectations for them. They're expected to be the educator, the parent, the confidant, the disciplinary, and so many other things. And so that's what the 3 E's are saying, of course, from the educator's perspective. And then finally, in the middle, now typically the seesaw doesn't have a middle, but let's pretend it does. In the middle, we have our students. And our students are in the middle saying, hey, who am I? What's next? What should I do? And so it's kind of like that tug of war, I guess you can say. It's kind of like that tug of war, pretty much. And so you all, at this point in my design project, I realized that for so long that many of us, and even myself included, have placed an enormous amount of pressure onto the education system for every single thing. But the truth of the matter is that the system was designed to teach the test. And the system isn't all bad at all, because I have plenty of cousins and aunts who are all educators on my father's side. But the current design doesn't allow for students maximum development in identity formation. So where did that leave me and my team up until this point? They would say, well, good design project, we're all said and done now. Not at all. I want you to close your eyes for a moment, just for a quick moment, so participate with me here, just close your eyes for a moment. Imagine that you have a week off of work or school, and you're at home packing, getting ready to leave with your closest friends and your family members because you're getting ready to go on a vacation. So where are you going, you may ask? Well, maybe it's the Philippines, maybe it's Hawaii or Paris or even Dubai. Wherever you're going, it's a place you've never been. Stay with me here and keep your eyes closed, because up until this point, you have the itinerary, you have the flights booked, your seats chosen, and you have more than enough money in your pocket to explore. You finally arrive at your destination to go sightseeing, and my goodness, it's breathtaking. You love it so much that you're already thinking about planning your next trip back because it's just that exciting. Now, hold on to that feeling, because that feeling that you have is what our design team wants our target audience to feel. Open your eyes for me. You feel excited, don't you? Ready to plan that trip that you just imagined in your mind, right? Well, that's what we want Katie to feel like. How might we help Katie or teens and young adults feel like they've discovered the eighth wonder of the world? And what is the eighth wonder of the world? The eighth wonder is how we help students discover who they are. But how are we going to do this exactly? How will she and others discover the eighth wonder of the world? What can be done for her to have that feeling that you just had when you close your eyes for that moment? Well, we came up with a solution. Welcome to Camp X, where the X stands for exposure. And I know exposure starts with the E, but to grab teens in, Camp X. But before I go further, I want to show you a quick video about what Camp X is all about.
Introducing Camp X. Camp X is a mandatory 4-year elective course required for graduation for all 9th through 12th graders at every public, charter, private, and/or homeschool location. Every year, students will take a Camp X level course to be exposed to different concepts. In 9th grade, students will enroll in Camp X 101, where they will discuss emotional intelligence and discuss topics such as coping, empathy, and communication skills, self and relationship management, self and social awareness, and decision-making techniques. Through this course, students will understand the importance of EQ, know how to communicate in an effective and emotionally intelligent way, and they'll also be aware of how their emotions affect their behavior and performance. In 10th grade, students will enroll in Camp X 102, where they will focus on college, career, and job preparation. Some of the concepts in 102 include exploring interests in job shadowing, job searching and networking skills, resume, cover letter, and interview skills, and test preparation. At the end of this course, students will be prepared to enter and succeed in a 2- or 4-year college, university, or technical school. They will also have the ability to thrive in the workforce from job search, application, interview, and on-the-job success. In 11th grade, students will enroll in Camp X 103, where they will focus on leadership development. Concepts in 103 include communication and collaboration, design thinking, authentic leadership and cultural competence, and change and influence. At the end of this course, students will have a broad understanding of effective leadership roles and strategies. They will also be able to create and maintain an effective and collaborative team environment. In 12th grade, students will enroll in Camp X 104, which will cover the topic of financial literacy. Some of the concepts include personal financial management, budgeting, investing, and taxes. At the end of this course, students will be able to identify the importance of being financially literate and understand what it means to be financially free. Once your child graduates from high school, They'll also be graduating from Camp X with the skills they need to thrive in adulthood with confidence in whatever path he or she chooses. For more information, please visit us online at www.campx.com.
All right, you all. So that is Camp X, a 4-year elective course required for graduation. And each year, students will take a different curriculum. So emotional intelligence, college, career, and job preparation, leadership development, and finally, financial literacy. And so I know some of you guys are probably thinking, well, Jasmine, that sounds all great and dandy, but how will you measure student success? How are they going to engage in the curriculum? And that's a great question. Project-based learning, also known as PBL. Project-based learning was designed to capture students' attention with real-world problems. It allows students to work with their hands, work with others through student collaboration, and it also increases their engagement, which is something extremely important, especially for teenagers. It's going to give them the freedom to express themselves and what they've learned through creation, models, and presentations. So the way that they present through a TED Talk style, creating a board game or a documentary, however they want to express themselves and what they've learned, they have the ability to do so. It allows them to have a voice. It allows them to think differently. And that's personally what I love about project-based learning. And so you all, let's go back to that picture that I showed you at the very beginning of my presentation. And when I look at their faces, I'm reminded of this quote. There we go. Have the courage to choose your own path, not the path others expect of you. And that is what I want students to take away from Camp X. I want them to truly know who they are and what they want. I want them to be honest about the scope of their ambition. I want them to be confident so that when they walk across that graduation stage at high school, that they know it's going to be okay. And that regardless of what's thrown their way, they'll be able to pivot. Remember what they learned in Camp X, and that will allow them to make informed decisions. Because that is just some of what I've learned here at the leadership program at APU, that you must be able to pivot and that you must be able to plan for the future. And I know some of my classmates can relate to that plan to the future with our last course that we just took. It was a doozy, I must say. But like I said, you must be able to pivot and you must be able to plan for the future. But before you can do any of that, you must be self-aware. I learned that I must have the emotional agility to recognize my patterns of thinking and my behaviors. And that I must be able to label my thoughts and my emotions. And I'm truly thankful for this program because it allowed me to learn more about who I am as a child of God and as a leader. This design project showed me that as a leader, it's not about me. And throughout this 15 or 16 weeks, I had to check myself sometimes and remember who I was serving, because leadership is stewardship, and we were all called to be stewards of God. And if I can remain true to who I am and who God called me to be, along with being a great leader, I know that once my time here on earth is all said and done, that I can ignite a passion and inspire others to be the very best that they can be. So as I wrap up, you guys, I'll leave 2 questions I wanted to answer. So Jasma, what now? Where do you go from here? And for me, it's time to put my 10-year dreams into action. These last 15 weeks, forced me in a sense to get started on this nonprofit that I've always said I wanted to do since high school, kind of like the pandemic. We put some stuff off, the pandemic happened, and we just did it. And I realized that Camp X may not make it to be an elective course in every school across America in the next 1 or 2 years. But I can use those same concepts that I spoke about today to create Youth Achievement Enterprises Incorporated, which is a name and logo I came up with about 6 or 7, maybe 8 years ago. But as I gear up to start my nonprofit, I feel compelled to ask you something. What are you prepared to do today so that kids being born tomorrow can grow up in an education system that doesn't just meet their needs, but exceeds their needs? It starts today. It starts with you, and it starts with me. Because as Michael Tubbs, former mayor of Stockton, California, once said, the systems that we inherit are not acts of God, but acts of men and women that ran for office that we voted for, which means that we have the power to be the change we wish to see in the world, or at least in our own communities. Because after all, it takes a village. Thank you.